My family is Coahuiltecan from the state of Coahuila. I no longer speak my language. Coahuiltecan has been lost. There is a dictionary of our language at the Smithsonian. I don't speak it, I speak Spanish. But even though I've lost all of that, I know my identity because of dishes like this. Cactus, chiles, corn cooked this way is not only memories of my immediate mom and grandfathers and grandmothers, but it goes way back. This is a link to the memory of 10,000 years ago. Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Adán Medrano. Good afternoon, I'm Adán Medrano. I'm here in Minneapolis at the Indigenous Food Lab, feeling very, very welcome, thank you. And I'm here from San Antonio, Texas. I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas, and Nava, Coahuila. Both are cities, one on the north side of the Rio Grande and the other on the south side of the Rio Grande. And I grew up in both places. So the food that I'm going to cook is from that region. It's called the South Texas, Northeastern Mexico region. And if you look at a map of South Texas and Northeastern Mexico, you will see a region that over the years has been cohesive culturally, it has been cohesive politically, and also in terms of the food. So what I'm going to demonstrate today is a dish of the food of that region. These are gorditas made with corn masa, and I'm going to fill them with cactus, nopalitos, and with shrimp. We have a lot of shrimp on the Gulf Coast, as you know, in Texas. So what you're watching me do is just work with this masa, which is ground corn. This corn is dried corn that was nixtamalized. When corn was invented about, 7,000, 8,000 years ago, it was invented in Mexico by women, and it was invented in the sense of being created as corn from a grass. It was very popular. And 2,000 years later, women who were in charge of cooking and all types of gardening and soil production, soil protection, they realized that there wasn't enough nutrition in the masa, in this masa. I'm adding a little bit of sunflower oil. Normally, this masa is used for tortillas, and so there would be no oil, there would be no salt, because the tortillas are just corn in the nixtamalized form. But here for the gorditas, I'm adding a little bit of oil and some salt for flavor, because the gorditas are going to be important as a shell. We're going to fill them with cactus, and if it were a tortilla, you wouldn't need the salt, but for gorditas you do. So back to my story about nixtamalization. So 2,000 years after this corn was invented, the women engineered a process called nixtamalization. And if you eat corn just straight off the corn cob, it's not very nutritious. So they invented a process called nixtamalization, where you take calcium hydroxide. You can make it by burning wood, and it's the white ash that comes from potassium hydroxide that comes from the wood. And they boil the corn in that lye, in that salt, and that we call it cal, and that changes the molecular structure of the protein of the corn. And now what I'm working with is the nixtamalized corn, which is a very high quality protein, can be easily digested in the body, and it also has a more nutty flavor, so it's a more delicious flavor. These will be the gorditas. Gorditas are small cakes. First you make a ball, then they're called gorditas, they're called little chubby ones. So you see, if you compare this to a tortilla, it's much more chubby. So that's why they call them gorditas, little chubby ones. I add a little bit of oil. Normally you would have a comal, cast iron comal, but we don't have one here today. So we're using this pan, and we're just going to lay them. I'm going to make several of them, because these go back, as I say, 9,000 years in terms of an iconic dish of the Mesoamerican people in Mexico. They arrive in Texas, which is where I'm from. The indigenous people of Texas are called Coahuiltecan, and it arrives in Texas about 2,000 years ago because Texas, San Antonio, and then south of the border, the states that are now called Coahuila, Nuevo León, all the northeastern part of Mexico was in constant communication with Mesoamerica. And that's how the corn reached us about 2,000 years ago. I think that's a wonderful story about the protagonism of women. This would not be with us were it not for the creativity, both of flavor and engineering of technique invented by women in Mesoamerica. And I'm glad that we were in constant communication. All of the indigenous peoples of North America were in constant communication with the indigenous peoples of Mexico and Central America. So this is one of the gifts we have from the corn. Now, as that cooks, let's move on to the second element of our cooking, which is the chiles. Mexican cooking is often stereotyped with hot chile flavor. We like the heat, but it is not the most important thing. What we do with the chiles in order to get the flavor, but not the heat, is we take out the seeds. And I always cut a slit along the edge, and then I remove the seeds from inside. And you just do the best you can. You make sure all the seeds are gone. And you also want to remove this white spine. This is where the capsaicin lives. Capsaicin is the chemical that burns your tongue, capsaicin. And it resides here in these white veins, so you want to take those out. And it resides in the seeds. So take those out, make sure you get as much of that out as you can. And that's the chile. The way that we move from the dried chile to making a very soft and smooth sauce is to boil it so that we can rehydrate it. This is what it looks like. I don't know if you can see that. This is the rehydrated chile. You boil it for about 15 or 20 minutes. This is what it looked like before. These two, you see? So after these are very, very soft, we are going to blend them into a chile puree. In the old days, before we had Vitamix, the women would take this and use a stone metate and grind it by hand. And it would be very, very smooth and velvety. But now we have, luckily, Vitamix. I'm going to put some water in it to be able to use the blender. Now keep in mind that I'm using this water because the source of these chiles here at the Indigenous Food Lab, the sourcing is very important. So the sourcing of these chiles is clean. Otherwise I would throw the water away and just use plain water. I'm going to add some ground cumin, maybe a pinch, maybe a little bit more. Tex-Mex food is not this food. This is Texas Mexican food. This is the Mexican food of Texas. Tex-Mex is a food that imitates us. It was created by Anglos for Anglos, and it's a wonderful restaurant food that many people love. And I just want to make sure that you don't confuse it with ours. We're going to put 1 clove of garlic, and then we blend it. The point of blending the chile is that we want to create a sauce that is silky. It's called mouthfeel. Silky. When you spoon it and you taste it, there should be no granules. There should be no coarse bits of any sort. It should just be smooth, silky sauce. So that's where it goes. I think you can see that. If you have a home blender, This may take a long time. You let it go. You have three steps to the chile. One, of course, is you deseed them, you devein them. The second step is that you rehydrate them. And then the third step, after you blend it, is to fry the chile. We know that we have the mouthfeel that's very smooth. And now we need to cook it so that we get rid of all the green flavor. If you taste it now, the chiles and the spices, it's a beautiful, beautiful aroma. You'll taste a lot of herbal flavors, and there'll be a little bit of a clash, I think, of flavors because they haven't melded. The flavors haven't melded. And in every process that uses this type of blending of chile purees, even in moles, you have this process. You need to fry the chile. And you'll hear the splatter, so be very, very careful as you cook the chile. I always put a lid on it because it really does splatter quite a bit. We want that to cook for about 8 minutes. You'll notice that the color is bright red. It's going to deepen, the flavor will deepen, and that's why that process is very, very important now. And for the filling, we're going to start with nopalitos. It looks like this. This is a cactus petal. And normally I would not be able to hold it in my hand. Normally you would handle it with tongs, and there would be spines sticking out, and you would simply collect this, get under the spine and lift it up like that and remove the spine. You would do the same thing with all of these. So it's a very laborious process, but this is what you would do. Sometimes you can use a potato peeler, but you can see how you will have little indentations there. What we're going to do is cook the nopalitos. We want little squares, small squares, because our gorditas are small ones. One moment, let me check to see how the gorditas are doing. The gorditas, I don't know if you can see that, but I use a little bit of oil. Sometimes the pans are not the most easy to use, but a well-used cast iron comal, well worn and well cleaned, is perfect, and it is the traditional way to do these. But these will work just fine. So getting back to the cactus, this is the way I cut it. Very thin slices. If you have large gorditas, then you would make larger pieces, but these are small, so I'm going to keep the dice very, very small. I know that cactus is not very well known in most parts of the United States, but it should be, because it is an iconic dish. It has been in Texas for 7,000 years. There are archaeological studies in caves, and we know that our early ancestors ate nopalitos. We call them nopalitos. And sometimes they would be used, without the spines of course, as carpet. They would take the paddles and then lay them on the floor of caves and use them as flooring carpet. That's what the gorditas should look like. They should have brown dark spots. I'm going to turn this down and let them cook. So I'm going to turn this up to very high. Normally, some people like to use canola oil. Canola oil, unfortunately, is processed, but it's been shown to reduce cholesterol and to have some antibiotic properties. So I do use canola oil, but I think this sunflower oil will really be more natural, more flavorful. We're going to cook the cactus for about 15 minutes. The mucus of the cactus, it's like okra. It has mucus that will exude, and you want to cook that away. Cook it for about 15, 17 minutes. I'm just going to add some more. Yeah. After about 10 minutes, we want to add some onion, diced onion. Here's the way I do the onion. There are many ways other chefs do the onion. I do it this way. You remove the skin, and what we want is very, very small dice. Again, what I mentioned before, the mouthfeel is very important. The size of the pieces will react differently to your mouth as you chew. So you want all the pieces to be uniform. This is the root. Now you'll notice that an onion has a circular pattern. So you go like 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're going to be turning. I'm going to cut this down, take it off, and then just slice it lengthwise. Onions are native all over the world. We have them in North America, native here, and the Europeans also brought their own onions, but there was a different type of onion. And you cut so that the dice are all uniform. We're going to add the onion. Now, when you do this, remember not to use the sharp end because you'll dull your knife. You want to turn it the other way, and just add the onion. And by this time, the cactus is almost done, and the two of these will saute together. Some of these have dark spots and they burn. That's very, very typical of this dish, because normally a lot of these ingredients would be roasted on an open fire. So having black spots is very normal, and it adds to the flavor and also adds to the nice look. Well, let me check the gorditas. Okay, they're coming along nicely. This is what the chile should look like. It's been frying there for about 10 minutes, and it has become darker in color. The flavor has deepened. So they're ready. This is ready now for us to add it to the cactus, and it'll cook in the cactus for about 10 minutes. That smells wonderful. It does have a bit of a tang, even though it's not as hot as it would be had we left all the membranes and the seeds in it. I'm going to add some water to deglaze. We'll let that cook a little bit, and then we're going to add some shrimp. One of the things that we always have to do is clean our workstation. So we'll do this. At least when I cook, the shrimp is normally Gulf shrimp. You peel it and you cut it into tiny dice like this. When it comes out of the refrigerator, you can cook it for 2.5 minutes. That's what I do. So you add the shrimp. Now from this point on, the fire is on, and it will start to boil here in a little bit. You start timing it in your head or with a real timer, and you want to go 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes will give you perfectly cooked shrimp that's still moist and juicy. And that's what it should look like. I'm going to taste it and correct the salt. The onions should be completely cooked. They should not be hard. They should be totally soft. The nopalitos will be a little bit crispy, but not by much. And the shrimp will be perfectly cooked. This needs a little bit of salt. When you cook, every time that you go into a new step and you can taste, go ahead and taste so that you know how it's going. Let me try that again. And this is how you taste without putting your saliva into the pan. You take the item and you put it into your spoon, and then you taste the spoon. Let me try it. Very nice. Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay, so we're ready for the gorditas. What we want to do is make pockets out of these gorditas. These gorditas, all of these gorditas are filled. Sometimes people will fry them. At this stage, they'll put them into hot oil and fry them. You fill the gorditas with a lovely, lovely sauce. And it's so aromatic. The aroma is just wonderful. And the colors blend nicely. As I said, these are not burned as they would be in Western cuisine. When you roast on a comal outdoors, you get that, and you want that, not just for the look that it has, but also because of the flavor. This is the way they should look. If you don't want to eat shrimp and want to be totally vegan, you simply leave out the shrimp and you leave out the queso fresco. But I like to put a little bit of the queso fresco because it adds a dimension of white color. You know, the visual is very important. And that's why I add a little bit of the queso fresco. And then after you do that, just a tiny bit of green to make it pop. And that's the gorditas that I like to serve. Reminds me of my two homes, San Antonio and Nava, Coahuila. And reminds me of my family, my ancestors. You know, I often tell my friends who are not Native American, my family is Coahuiltecan from the state of Coahuila. I no longer speak my language. Coahuiltecan has been lost. There is a dictionary of our language at the Smithsonian. I don't speak it, I speak Spanish. But even though I've lost all of that, I know my identity because of dishes like this. Cactus, chiles, corn cooked this way is not only memories of my immediate mom and grandfathers and grandmothers, but it goes way back. This is a link to the memory of 10,000 years ago, where my ancestors lived. So I'm cooking in my ancestral lands, and I'm glad that you'll be able to enjoy the gorditas. We have short Elijah here. Elijah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What's
too.
your last name?
Walker.
Elijah Walker is visiting the Indigenous Food Lab. So what I've done for you, Elijah, is I've prepared an open face. This is open faced. It's different from the way we had it before. I split them in half so that they're easier to eat, and there's more of them to go around. So what this is, the bottom is a corn cake with just a little bit of salt, and then it's filled with cactus that has been bathed in a red chile sauce with garlic and some spices. And then to that, at the last minute, I added some fresh shrimp. The green is the cilantro and the cheese. And I'd like you to taste one of these and see what you think of it.
Yeah.
Take your time. What?
That's really good.
Yes? All right.
I've never had one of these before. I really like it.
You've never had cactus?
I've never had like a gordita before.
Gordita.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
It's like the shrimp really brings out like a really good flavor with that spice in there. Mm-hmm. There's like a little spice. And then I was kind of worried about the cactus at first, but it really like kind of balances out the gordita, you know, with the corn.
How is the taste of the corn, the flavor of the corn patty?
It's good. It kind of reminds me of like hominy, like when my mom would make hominy and buffalo soup. That's what it reminds me of. It's really good.
Actually, it is hominy.
Is it?
Yes. Yes. Nixtamalized corn is hominy. Yeah, isn't that interesting? And then how would you describe the cactus?
It's like it's not chewy, it's really soft and it kind of just melts, you know? And it just adds a really nice flavor to it. It just kind of balances it all out and it really puts this out there. It's really good. I've never had anything like this before. I really enjoy it.
I'm so glad. This is great. I'm glad you liked it, Elijah,
Yeah,
and you can have this to go, actually. Thank you for being here, for tasting my food, and thank you all for watching.